another Science Summer Safari Family and Teacher Expedition. We're here at Turkey Run State Park for a day filled with science and exploration. Are you ready?
I got my map, got my bug spray, got shoes to get wet in, and a bag for trash.
Let's go. So, we're at the top of the stairs getting ready for about a 2-hour experience. And we're going to be walking down some elevations and up some elevations, and it's a lot of steps. Justin, you ever counted how many steps we'll do?
I lost count about 400.
Is that on the way down?
I can't remember.
So this is going to be a good workout, and our first stop is actually on these steps. Let's go check it out. So we're on a narrow part of the trail, and part of trail etiquette on any hike is that you move to the right to let people that are hiking through pass you. But I want to stop right here at this wall made out of sandstone blocks. Justin is using his hand lens to look at some very interesting primitive plants. We call them pioneer plants, plants that come in here and start to take root. And you see some beautiful mosses, some lichen, and a very old primitive plant called the wart. It kind of looks like frog skin. So make sure you spend a little bit of time here looking at these primitive pioneer plants, and then some of these upper order plants like the ferns and some of the stinging nettle here. This is a great place to start your first observations.
Right here, as Rick was pointing out and talking about, you can see the wart. Here's some wart right here. You can see the lichen, and here's some moss, and it's all over this wall. It's really cool. In your magnifying glass, you can really see a lot of the different textures and features of it really well.
So at the bottom of the steps here, I always like to stop because here is the extra counselor when we take our kids on a hike. And that extra counselor we call stinging nettle. This plant right here, which will grow a couple feet taller as the summer goes on, is a stinging nettle that has a little acid in its leaves and on its stems. There's little bitty hypodermic needles. If you rub up against it, it's going to go into you and you're going to get a little burn and some welts and some bumps. Stinging nettle, if it's hairy, it's got a hairy stem, it's got toothed leaves on it. And so there's not much you can do when you get stung by stinging nettle is learn it so you don't get stung again. Or you could put some mud on it, but if you could find this one plant called jewelweed, and I think Justin?
Yeah, I found some right here.
How do you tell it's jewelweed?
Well, you can tell by the root, you can see that the red root.
Okay, we got stinging nettle and jewelweed. Another reason it's called jewelweed is because this is an acid and this is a base, and the juice from this will neutralize the acid. Here, go ahead and get stung, we can show them. Here, hold that. And so the juice, you can any of the juice on here will rub, and it's a good antidote for that. But it's called jewelweed because if you put this in the water beads up on it. It looks like little diamonds because of the small microscopic hairs on it, or the nano hairs on it, and that's where it gets its name, jewelweed. Take some of this down to the river, put it under the water. It's going to look silver with little diamonds on it. Stinging nettle, jewelweed. Down here in the bottomlands, the kind of trees that grow here are used to a lot of water. In fact, you'll find sycamore trees which love water, but one of my favorite trees is the Indiana banana, or the pawpaw tree. And so this is a pawpaw tree. It has very distinguished looking leaves, kind of like Dr. Seuss invented this. But another way to tell it is to look for the little green fruits that are on there. They're hard to find because, well, the animals eat them and a lot of people eat them. But another way to do this, if you see this leaf, and if you squeeze it a little bit and smell it, you'll never forget that really strong smell. That pawpaw tree ought to be called the stink tree, I think.
Yeah.
But that smell keeps the animals away from it. But the fruit, some people love it. I've never tried it. What about you, Justin?
I've never tried it, but the animals obviously love it because there's not any on the tree.
No. And if it smells anything like this leaf, I can live without it.
Yeah.
Pawpaw tree. So I'm on a sandbar or gravel bar here at Sugar Creek. Behind me are the sandstone cliffs that make this place famous. Sandstone is sedimentary rock. But when you're here, it's a good time to look at Sugar Creek and how it's flowing. I don't know if you know this or not, but all rivers flow because of gravity. they flow in the direction of downhill. And so right now, this Sugar Creek, there's not been a lot of rain around here. It's pretty low, but there's still no swimming or wading allowed here. And it is quite dangerous in some of the places where the current pushes underneath that sandstone cliff. But take some time. I think Justin's looking for some stuff. Another thing we like to do is have a rock skipping contest. I think the record was held by a kid last year, 7 skips. I don't know, I'm not too good at it. I'm gonna try it. Find you a nice flat rock, throw it parallel, and see how many skips you can get in. Let's see what we got here. 1, 2. That one was pretty bad. Maybe you'll do better. It's good to do that. Let's try one more. Here we go. That was 6. I'm counting 6.
Maybe.
Just wanted to check the video.
You're down here along Sugar Creek on the sandbar. As Rick was saying, you can find all kinds of treasures down here, and here's some that I found. Indiana mussels. Found a little geode. You can find fossils in rocks, which are really cool. Even here's a rock that has a bunch of little bitty crinoids in there, for crying out
One
loud.
of the big attractions here at Turkey Run is this suspension bridge, which is actually a bridge that is suspended on those cables and moves back and forth. And the kids love going across this. I love setting up a cadence, and it really kind of freaks everybody out. Your choice. As you see these kayakers coming down, take a look at that sandbar on the left. When the current slows down, it drops the heavy, larger rocks upstream because they're too heavy. But if you look at the tail end of that sandbar, you see it's all muddy and silty because those are the last things to drop, the silt. So you can tell which is the up current, where the heavy things are, and the down current, where the muddy parts are. You'll know this if you walk on it. So take a look at those sandstone cliffs on the other side. And someone pointed out to me that there's a pretty cool mountain lion's head, and it's right about here in the center. Can you see that? Very cool. Of course, it's not really a mountain lion's head. We have mountain lions in Indiana?
Nope.
If we did, they'd be at Turkey Run. So, a lot of people hate this, but you can actually get this bridge going by doing this back and forth. Yeah, they don't like it at all. I kind of like it. As soon as you cross the suspension bridge, you have a choice to make. We like to go on Trail 3, but Trail 3 is a huge loop. If you take the sharp right on Trail 3, you go to Rocky Hollow. But if you follow us, it's the longer way. That's quite a lot of adventures. Which way are we going, Justin?
The long way.
The long way. Trail 3, straight back this way. So right here is a beautiful sandstone cliff, and you can see how it's been cracked open. And we call that when a rock is cracked or break down, we call that
Weathering.
weathering. And there's 3 types of weathering. Justin, what's that tree doing? What type is that?
Biological weathering, because the roots are causing the rocks to crack and erode.
So that huge hemlock pine tree right there is weathering, but so is that poison ivy. That's poison ivy. If it's 3, let it be. So just so you know, that is poison ivy. That's a hemlock tree. The second type of weathering is chemical weathering, like you might see on the Statue of Liberty. But the third and probably the most popular or prevalent type of weathering is physical weathering, another name mechanical weathering. That's when something rubs against it, like everybody's footsteps up here, or 2 rocks rubbing together. So here's 2 pieces of sandstone, a sedimentary rock, and when they rub together or weather, they make sand again. And that sand which I'm standing on will be compacted in a couple million years. Maybe it's going to be sandstone again. So it's part of the rock cycle. Sandstone weathers, physical weathering to sand, sand, sedimentary rock, turns into sandstone.
Now, one kind of physical weathering that we do not like is carving and writing on the sandstone or trees and so forth. So we don't like that.
A along the way, be careful of the drop-offs. This trail is dangerous with the little children. Use the handrail, stay to the right, and make sure you make stops like right here. I think we call this Sunset Point. It's a beautiful view of Sugar Creek, and you can see quite a distance. But be careful, use the handrail.
Now, after you come down the stairway, you come right here and you'll see the ice box. Now, there's two ways to get down there. There's the way that I'm standing on right now, which is a little more challenging, but if you hold on something tight as you go down, you can go down like that, or you can hold down like you're walking down a ladder and go backwards like that. The easy way, I'm gonna send Rick that way.
Oh, thanks. You mean take the easy route?
Yep.
Easy route's around this way. I'll meet you down at the Devil's Ice Box.
What took you so long?
Hey, this hiking is not a race. Take your time. Stop. Smell the lichen. This is one of my favorite places at Turkey Run. It used to be called the Devil's Ice Box. I think it's just called the Ice Box. And there's two ways to go here. The science way and the mythology way. So the science way is pretty interesting. This is kind of famous for its temperature. It's really cool here. And it's cool here because the water coming down evaporates. And when that water evaporates, it takes the heat energy out of the rocks. And since it's about 10 to 20 degrees cooler than up high, there are certain trees left over from the Ice Age. This tree right here and this tree right here is an eastern hemlock. And a hemlock tree used to cover all of Indiana when the glaciers were receding, when the climate was much colder. So these are left over from the glaciers, eastern hemlocks. And they survive here because of this cold science, evaporation, and condensation. It also, now the myth of this, it has to do with the Devil's Ice Box. But every kid I know likes to go under that waterfall. Don't get under that waterfall. That's the same water in the top of the creek and the top of the hill up here where raccoons and animals and dogs have gone to the bathroom, and that water comes down. So don't drink it. Don't put it on your face. That's what we have to tell the kids, because if you don't tell them, they will do it. But now the myth. Justin's over here. Justin, you're at kind of like the scariest place here. So it's called Devil's Ice Box. If you put your hand in there, two things can happen. It's very cold. Is it cold, Dustin?
Yeah.
Reach your hand back in there, because some say the myth is that something might grab your hand.
Just kidding.
Oh, well, hey, don't take our word for it. Try it yourself. But stay out of the waterfall. It's yucky. So there was a storm last night, and it seems like every time I come here, there's a storm last night. One time we came to this section, and it was completely wiped out by that giant tree, and it was impassable. And if you notice, the park rangers may not get here for a week, but this sugar maples, what this tree, this creek is named after, Sugar Creek, has come loose, and it's just barely hanging on right here. So even though this is a state park and it's maintained, it's your responsibility to watch out for things like this. So look at that, Justin. Why don't you go first?
All right.
So be careful, don't. And then I'm going.
Hey, do we have time for a photo shot?
No, come back with your family. Let's go.
All right.
Right here, we're at an intersection of Trail 3 that goes this way to the ladders, and Trail 5, which is pretty rugged trail. We're going on Trail 3 to see some of that cold condensation that's up by Bear Hollow, or the ladders. I love finding places like this that show active weathering or erosion. This stream coming out of the forest has cut through this sandstone and made this beautiful, beautiful view. Also, these ledges here, these canyons were formed millions of years ago, and the erosion that caused this was the glacier melts, and the last glacier melt was about 20,000 years ago. And so what you see here is ancient seabed, millions of years old, and a canyon formed from the glaciers. In fact, there was so many glaciers that came through Indiana, a glacier maybe a mile high when they receded, which meant they melt. All that water cut through and made these beautiful canyons here. And these ledges were made from water streaming down here for thousands of years. And this is where Turkey Run gets its name, because when the early settlers came here and the Native Americans, this was a place where birds would roost. You can still see some birds. I see vultures, sometimes we see some doves and rock pigeons, and even maybe occasional turkey. Turkey Run, a run not that they would run, but an area where they would move back and forth or roost. It's these types of ledges and these cold, cooler sandstone canyons that makes this a very unique place in Indiana. So we're at the end of Bear Hollow, where we come to the ladders. And so Justin's showing you the best way to go up these ladders. Feet go in the middle, hands on the outside, that way you won't get so dirty. But the most important thing is, this gets crowded, don't look up. If you look up, you're going to get the mud from someone's shoes in your eye. And so have a spotter halfway, go to the next ladder. There's 3 sets of ladders to get up. However, I'm going to go the other way, up the waterfall, which is right over here. And so when you're at the top of the ladders, you get a good perspective on how far down it is. This is a really crowded place, so you have to take your turn, be patient, and remember, don't look up or you're going to get mud in your eyes, and that will not be a good day.
We just came up to the top of the ladder. We're headed this way, Trail 3, lots of steps ahead.
We're at a crossroads. Trail 3 goes that way. Trail 10 goes that way. So the famous baseball philosopher, Yogi Berra, you know what he said? When you come to a fork in the road, take it. But we're headed on Trail 3 this way. So we're at the top of the forest here at Turkey Run State Park. And this is the remnants of a climax forest. In a climax forest, one tree dominates, and that's this poplar back here. And it's actually called the tulip poplar. You can tell by these leaves right here, it's the state tree of Indiana. And this leaf looks like a T-shirt to me, or in a T shape. That's the tulip poplar. Justin, how big around is that tree? Go ahead and count it off.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
That's 9 paces, about 27 feet around the circumference. When Indiana was left alone before settlers came, these trees dominated the forest. Tulip poplar, the state tree of Indiana. On Trail 3, this is a nice place to stop after you pass the tulip tree. There's a bench, you can sit down. I've been bringing students here for over 40 years. Many years ago, there used to be a large tree and a tornado came through here and ripped it out. You can still see it down in the creek, which opened up the canopy. So I like to call this place Tree Wars, because since then, all these trees, all these small little maples and all these beech trees are racing to fill up that gap that's in the canopy. And you can learn more about forests and the different layers, the understory and the forest floor. But right now, something amazing is going on. They're all trying to fill that spot. Some of these smaller trees will start off, it's kind of like the rabbit and the tortoise. They're going to grow quick and fill it, but the slow, majestic, tall tulips will take over. It's amazing that all these trees are attached to each other through their roots and through the fungus that lets them in communication with each one. Take a minute, take a look at this canopy. We call this Tree Wars. So, at the bottom of Trail 3, you then have to walk in the creek. But the good news is, the hard part's over. Come down here, follow the water, to Rocky Hollow. It's amazing. It's also really slippery, so be careful.
As you come around down Trail 3, when you get near the punch bowl, you have two directions you can go. You can go up to the top where Rick's going to go, or you can come down here and get into the punch bowl and get wet like me.
So I'm on top of the punch bowl, which is a beautiful feature at the end of Rocky Hollow. And this is where the water has hit a softer layer of sandstone and carved out this bowl that you see where Justin is down there. Good place to walk in. Don't drink the water.
So I'm in the punch bowl, I'm getting wet, but I really like seeing the water come down here, and you can see some more examples of erosion.
So when you leave the punch bowl, once again, you have choices. You can walk in the water, you can take the steps like Justin, or you can use the wall. Hey, develop your own style, but just be safe. Here we go. You taking the steps?
Yep, I'm taking the steps.
All right, I'm gonna do the wall. So you're looking at these rocks right here. They look like they've been naturally placed here. But last summer, Turkey Run and the DNR spent a lot of money to redo this entire area. They brought heavy equipment in and placed these rocks so you and I can easily cross these creeks. They also built up the path and put up some signs to protect some biologically sensitive areas. These hills here on the sandstone are filled with salamanders and plants that are only found in this locale. So that's why it's a good idea to stay on the trail that we built for everybody, observe the sides, and have fun. So one of the last features we're going to see today is wedge rock. If you look behind me, this huge piece of sandstone actually has fallen a number of years ago, and it continues to lean. So it's kind of interesting. I wonder how long it's going to take. Well, those trees up there are about 80 years old, and they're still attached to it. But one day, gravity and erosion will do the rest, and wedge rock will be probably called block rock when it lands down here in this creek.
As you can see right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, all those huge boulders used to be way up there. This is Rocky Hollow Canyon. So we're almost at the end of our hike. Let's take a look and see where we've been at today. So we started here at the Nature Center. We hiked down the steps and then crossed the suspension bridge. We went left and came down by the ice box. Then went around and then went up the ladder. Okay, went up the 140 steps all the way around until we got over by the punch bowl. Then we came down through Rocky Hollow. We just passed Wedge Rock, and we're about to come back to the suspension bridge.
816, 817, 818, 819. How many steps did you get?
I didn't count. How about we ask the family?
You asked the families, okay. Hey, I hope you guys have as much fun as we did today on Trail 3 here at Turkey Run State Park. It's a great place to come and spend the entire day, look around, have fun, and count the steps.
Yeah.